Hi there! Tonight, I'd like to invite you into a quiet, simple story. There's no twist, no rush, just stillness and a quiet place to breathe. It's the story of an old man and a wall. Not a magical wall, not a talking one, just a plain gray wall that simply stayed. If you're ready, find a soft spot to rest. Close your eyes if you like, and let's begin. The old man lived alone in a house faded by time. His wife had passed. His children now lived far away. In his home, it was just him and a plain gray wall. No paintings, no decorations, no colors, just a bare wall. Yet every day he sat facing it. One morning, after making tea, he sat down in his usual spot, but this time he spoke. "Guess I woke up a bit late today, huh?" The wall stayed silent, but he smiled anyway. "I know, you hear me. It's fine if you don't answer." From that day on, he told the wall everything about his dreams, his soup being too salty, a jacket that didn't fit, or simply, "The wind feels cool today." The wall never said a word, but he didn't need it to. There were no interruptions, no judgments, just him and the quiet. And in that quiet, he somehow heard himself more clearly than ever. One day, he noticed a small crack running down the wall. Suddenly, he remembered his wife once hung a hand-stitched towel right there. "She had such gentle hands," he whispered. His eyes followed the crack, like tracing a path through time, slowly finding his way back to the past. That night, a storm came. He woke up and sat before the wall again. Rain tapped the roof, soft and steady, like his wife's speech. He closed his eyes and whispered, "If wall can hear me, maybe she can too." And that night, he dreamed of her sitting beside him. He used to have friends, but over the years, they drifted away. The wall stayed. It didn't smile or speak, but it held all his words. One quiet afternoon, he wrote a small note, not meant to be sent, just a few words. "If someone comes here someday, please know, there once lived an old man who talked to a wall, and the wall never argued." He taped the note gently on the wall, just enough for someone to find if they looked closely. On his last day, he didn't speak. He simply sat there, looking at the wall for a long, long while. Then, slowly, he nodded, as if to say, "That's enough." The wall stayed silent, like always, but he knew it had heard everything. In the corner of the room, near the window, sat a small wooden table and a white porcelain teacup. Every morning, the old man would boil water, carefully steep his tea with trembling hands, and place the cup on that table. He sat in silence, no one across from him. Only the early sunlight, slipping through the curtain, touched the cup's warm rim. No one reminded him to brew tea. No one waited to drink it. But still, he brewed it, sat down, and blew gently before sipping. Long ago, his wife used to sit across from him. They didn't speak much, just exchanged glances through wisps of rising tea steam. She would smile softly. He would frown at the heat. Now the chair is empty, but he still poured tea into 2 cups, one for himself and one for the person no longer there. One morning, he forgot to drink. The tea cooled, but the scent still lingered above the little table. He stared at the cup, as if trying to see something no longer touchable, but still present. Some sadness doesn't vanish. It simply softens with time, like cooling tea. Dust gathered on the cup's handle. A faint crack lined the porcelain rim. His hands shook more now, but he still poured, even if the tea spilled a little. One morning, he opened the tea jar and saw only a few broken leaves left. He picked them out carefully, poured hot water, and let it steep longer than usual. Then he sat, watching the steam rise. He didn't speak. He didn't drink. He just sat there for a long time, as if he were pouring memory into silence. A neighbor came by after not seeing him for days. On the table, the cup still held tea, cold now. No one could say if he had drunk from it, but someone had cleaned the teapot, folded the cloth, and placed the cup back just right. Morning. Years later, someone returned to tidy the old house. The cup was still there. No one could bring themselves to throw it out. They wiped off the dust and placed it back on the little table, in the exact same spot. Since that day, each morning, sunlight returns to touch the cup, as if to greet the one who once sat there. On the wall, where the old man often sat, there hung an old clock, its wooden frame darkened and its glass face clouded over time. The clock ticked, soft and steady, like a friend who never said much but never left. The familiar tick-tock echoed through every moment in that home. Meals, quiet reading hours, her laughter, even the sleepy summer afternoons when everything else rested except the clock. It wasn't noise, it was background music for a life quietly unfolding. The day his wife passed, it felt as if the world had paused, but the clock kept ticking, steady and unchanged. He sat in the empty room, hearing each second fall forward, while he just wanted time to stand still. Since that day, each morning, he looked at the clock first, not to know the time, but to feel reassured that something still worked, something still stayed. One afternoon, he wondered, am I living or just chasing the ticking of that clock? The clock didn't answer. It simply continued its job, counting time, while he sat counting memories. One night, the clock stopped. No loud sound, no sign of failure, just silence. The hands froze at exactly 3:12. He noticed it the next morning, but instead of fixing it, he simply sat down, looked at it, and exhaled softly. He spoke gently, placing a hand on the worn wooden frame. Maybe you're tired too. From that day on, the clock never ticked again, but he still looked at it every morning. Not everything that stops is broken. Sometimes it's just a way to listen to the silence of time. Years later, someone came to clear the old house. The clock still hung there, frozen at 3:12. They reached up to remove it, but then paused, left it where it was. It no longer counted seconds, but it still held a moment that quietly remembered a life, and a kind of time that never needed ticking to last. Just outside the wooden window, where the old man sat sipping tea, there was a tiny bird's nest. He didn't know when the bird had come. One day, while opening the window to let the breeze in, a few strands of straw fell onto his shoulder. He looked up and saw it, a small, quiet nest tucked firmly under the roof beam. From that day on, each morning began with a soft chirp chirp. Not loud, not disturbing, just a gentle call, "Wake up, old man." He began opening the door a little earlier each day, just to listen a bit longer. The mother bird left early, even before the mist cleared. By the time sunlight poured in, she had already returned, beak full of food. The old man quietly watched from inside. No words, no closeness, but something in the house felt alive again. The sky rained, the nest swayed in the wind. He wanted to fix the roof, but only stood at a distance, watching. The mother bird returned, soaked, tired, but never give up. "Just like her," he whispered. "No matter the storm, she always came back." One morning, the chirps were more than one. Softer, smaller, messy. He smiled. "They've hatched, haven't they?" From that day on, he left a few breadcrumbs on the window ledge. Not much, just a quiet way of sharing. He watched each day, the patience of the mother, the baby birds awkwardly fluttering. No school, no words, just quiet love. So this is how we raise another, without noise, just care. One morning, silence. The nest was empty. He sat a while, no chirping. It felt a little hollow, a little lonely. But he knew leaving wasn't rejection. They left because they were ready for a new nest. He was older now, slower. As the warmer days returned, he noticed a few pieces of straw on the window ledge again. Looking up, a new nest in the same place. Not the same bird, but not the end either. After the old man passed away, the house had been silent. No soft yellow light in the early morning, no figure sitting by the window with a teacup in hand. But strangely, the wooden window remained slightly open, just like always. And on the windowsill, a few crumbs of bread, as if someone had just placed them there. The mother bird still returned to the nest each day. She didn't peek inside the house, but every time she landed, she paused for a moment, tilting her head as if listening for a familiar sound. Maybe it was habit, that someone was still waiting inside. His relatives arrived to sort through old books and worn clothes. They noticed the bird's nest slightly broken on one side and considered removing it, but the youngest grandchild suddenly whispered, "Let's leave it. I think birds still live here." Everyone paused, and no one took the nest down. The house was kept, though no one lived there often, but it was never truly empty. Each spring, a new bird would arrive and build a nest in the same spot. Even with no breadcrumbs left, they still came, still sang quietly at dawn. People began calling it the old man's nest, a quiet symbol of peace and a love that never needed words. Thank you for listening all the way here. Sometimes we don't need noise. We just need something or someone to stay. Even if it's silent, even if it's just a wall. I hope tonight's story brought you a little calm, a little warmth, and maybe a quiet place in your own heart to rest. Sleep peacefully and good night.